In the area where we live, there are many folks that still choose to rake their leaves every fall into bundles and put them in paper bags that they pay for and put them on the curb, and I think they pay for them to be taken away. And it's a great opportunity if you live in an area where folks are doing this. This is a great resource. I want to talk about some of the ways that we like to use leaf bags in the fall. Mentioned it last year with the leaf bag video, but the key reason we harvest these leaf bags is we like to dump them out in our chicken yard. As we get colder and colder into the winter, having organic matter that is also loose and insulative is incredibly helpful. And so long as we're not taking these leaf bags from pristine manicured lawns or questionable seeming locations, by and large they're about 90–95% leaves from trees by volume. So we find them to be pretty safe for our chickens. Let me dump some in there and show you what I mean. Back here in one of our composting areas, we've been dumping leaf bags now for a few weeks. There's a mix of other things in here. There's some other compost. There's actually the husks and the leftovers from our black walnut processing, along with garden scraps from the fall and food scraps. But the leaves are now becoming a pretty major ingredient. And they're providing carbon, there's minerals, tons of insulation, the occasional random pumpkin, so that's kind of fun. That'll provide some nitrogen. There's grass clippings in here. We try to take an inventory as we dump them out. If it's filled with litter or things like that, we pick that out. But basically this gives our chickens something to work on, and then by adding grain that's been soaked into these leaves, ... Here we are a week, 2 weeks later. A lot of you have already seen this, but those are grains soaked and mixed with leaves and some other composts. And here we are at the end of November. It froze last night a little bit, and our chickens are eating 70 and 80 degree earthworms and sprouts. The forest deposits leaves every year for very good reason. It supports the future health of the soil, supports all the little consumers, keeps the soil warm and protected from heavy rains. It's a blanket. And so if people are going to choose to get rid of it from their place, you can bring it to your place and really amplify the effect that the leaves can provide. Maybe you don't have chickens, so another use for these leaf bags is the bag itself and the leaves. Let me explain what I mean. Maybe you've got a section of lawn or an area that you'd like to sheet mulch. In other words, suppress the plants that are growing there so that you can prep the space to grow a food forest or more edible, medicinal, ecologically valuable plants than perhaps a lawn. So here is where the leaf bags can do some amazing work directly. In this area I've got some hardy kiwis and some elderberries that I'd like to mulch around. I can put the bag down and then simply dump leaves from the next bag right on top. The leaves break down slowly over winter. You can go pretty deep with them. Here's an elecampane that maybe I just want to promote the elecampane. I don't necessarily want to put a bag around it. The leaves can be an amazing mulch for that. But the combination of laying down that flexible cardboard or the flexible brown paper with the leaves on top does a really great job of knocking back the vegetation that's there. And by spring you get a really beautiful soil to work with. Now, in fact, part of our backyard, we erased the lawn in one fell swoop with about 60, maybe 80 leaf bags, a few hours of work, and now a few years later, it's incredibly productive nursery space, and there's not a fleck of lawn left. Maybe not the most handsome application, but another use for leaf bags, at least in our case, we've got a chicken coop that is elevated off the ground on a platform, and we can pack those bags tight up against some of the air gaps that are around the base to keep the wind out and to keep some insulation. So when it gets really cold and windy, our hens tend to hide under the coop right up next to those bags. And they'll get wet and start to decompose during the winter. And then in the spring, we simply pull the bag aside and spread the leaves out. There's all sorts of millipedes and worms, and the chickens work through them. Last night, we picked up a whole truckload of bags, and unfortunately, it rained overnight, so they're a little fragile. But the value there is that they don't blow away as easily when you use them as sheet mulch, and we can rip them and use them inside out to wrap bare root plants that we're handing off to folks. So there's another little minor use for them. Definitely would encourage you to use your own sensibilities and judgment around whether or not you think they're safe or reasonable. But we've been doing leaf bag collection and distribution in our landscape for at least 4 or 5 years, probably many hundreds of them over that time. They've been so useful to us, bulking out and insulating compost for the winter for our chickens, sheet mulching and erasing lawns and areas to help expand food forests, and all sorts of miscellany. So if folks are going to use their weekends and their money to accumulate their fertility from their landscape and send it away, perhaps you could be the recipient and your landscape could absorb their trees. Thanks for watching. Let us know, how do you use leaf bags? Do they work well for you? Have you had any issues that we should know about? Let's have some dialogue around it and make sure folks feel comfortable with the idea.